One of the best and funniest ways I ever heard it described was, you know, if you went and robbed a bank and then went outside and the police were there, like, you're still going to go to jail if you go and put the money back.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
All right, guys, we're here with Bear. So Bear has some issues with cats. So what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be running some like cat proofing drills with him. Sometimes this can be very challenging to do with dogs because unless you have a cat that is like a willing participant and like gonna allow you to hold them or keep them in one spot and stuff like that while you test the dog, it can be challenging to do if yours are skittish and try to run away and stuff, which has been the case with his owners. So what we're gonna do is I got my cat inside. We're gonna take him on inside here and we're gonna start working on some drills that we could do to help make sure that he stays nice and safe around them. So there's kind of two different philosophies when it comes to working on dogs with cats, right? So philosophy number one is we essentially just put the dog into avoidance of the cat. Any interest in it, stuff like that, we would just correct for, obviously. If you have a cat that's pretty good at setting boundaries, option two is that the dog learns an inhibition from the cat sending those boundaries, right? So in this case, you see that obviously. Turk has given him a smack for that. And the first time he did that, Bear moved away. Now he's kind of starting to escalate a little bit from it. So what we're going to do is we're going to see if that inhibition works or not, or if he continues to persist. If he continues to persist, I would back the cat up by giving him a correction for that. So there's a similar philosophy to teaching dogs to respond to other cues that dogs are giving, right? So a lot of dogs will naturally, when they get a correction from another animal, whether it's a swat by a cat or a dog giving a little snap or something like that, they'll give space organically on their own, right? Others will not, obviously, and they'll continue to persist or escalate as that kind of prey game turns into just a game for the dog, obviously, as you saw with Bear there. So by giving the correction when he didn't back down to that, I'm essentially empowering the cat, right? So I'm putting him in a position where he starts to see the cat as something to leave alone because those signals that he doesn't want anything to do with him are going to be backed up by me always in that case. And then we start to see that he can move away then at that point. And that's what I want to see is that he starts to learn to move away and create distance on their own. Obviously, we could use incompatible behaviors to help with this kind of stuff, things like down stays or bed stays and stuff like that. And that's a very important part of working through this process to gain some management initially. But at some point, we have to teach them how to commingle and interact with each other. And what I want to see is like we're seeing right now with Bear, you turn the camera back on him, is he knows the cat's here and he's creating space on his own now at this point. He's saying, you know what? Nothing good happens over there. I don't want anything to do with that. Here. I mean, I'm really not getting vibes he wants to like kill the cat, like at all. Even before I started correcting for everything else, like at the beginning, he kind of seemed pretty like respectful of it. It's just one of those things where it's like, you just gotta kind of keep doing that for a little bit.
It was a lot less intense than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, I mean, Vinny and Cade both were fucking just as intense, if not worse than him with Turk when they first met Turk. Cade chased Turk up a fucking tree in your backyard the first time you met him. Like, I mean, so this isn't any worse than them. This is just a matter of just consistency with it, right? You just got to realize you just can't chase the cat. I know it's really exciting, like the focusing and stuff like that. I'm really not even worried about that. You just got to keep his shit together around it, you know? Hello. Hello. All right, well, what's going on?
This guy.
What have you been working on?
We mostly walked. She has not been so good with the downstay.
The downstay.
She thinks about it long and hard, and then we'll put out one paw.
Yeah.
And then kind of maybe put out the other.
Yeah. Is it getting into the downstay she gives you a hard time with, or holding it once she's in it?
No, just getting there.
Will she hold it once she's in it?
Yes, she's better at that, but it's just getting her there.
That's right.
Yes.
We can work on that today.
Right, babes?
What about the walking? How's that been?
It wasn't as good as when you and I did it.
Ah,
I'll
sure.
be really honest.
All right.
Better the first couple days, but a lot of bumping into me.
Sure.
A lot of, still sniffing.
Yep.
But way better.
Way better, though. Okay.
Yes, of course.
All right, well, let's do this. Today what we'll do is we're going to focus on the walking, and we'll focus on the downstay. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to be pretty hands-off, and I want to watch you do it. Because a lot of times if we notice, like what you just said, which is she was really good, right? And then when you started doing it, it was better, but it definitely wasn't as good as when I was there.
Right.
A lot of that means then she was a little too dependent on some of the direction that I was giving her.
Okay.
And the direction you're giving her isn't as clear as the direction I was giving her.
Okay. So, and then yesterday we all stayed together.
Sure.
My son and his now wife are in Mexico. So
Oh,
they're not
cool.
worried about anything
Yeah,
anymore.
living it up.
Lily, come. Lily, no. Lily, no. No. Lily, no.
And I'm assuming this is kind of what you mean?
Yes.
Yep. Now, when you say no, so you've said no 4 or 5 times, are
Yeah.
you tapping the button every time you say no?
No, not everyone.
Okay, so that's one adjustment I want you to make right off the rip is
Okay.
if we're going to say no, we have to hit the button,
Okay,
right?
we have to-
Because no by itself is meaningless. No is not like a warning or anything like that. No means what you're doing is incorrect. We're going to give a correction for it so that she stops making that choice altogether.
Okay.
And then once they turn that corner, then you could start walking again. And again, the only adjustment I'm going to have you make is that anytime you say no, you're going to hit the button.
Hit the button.
Yep.
Nope. No.
So right there, every time you said no, you hit the button there.
Yes.
So let's,
No.
yep. So go ahead and come to a stop for a second. Yeah, so notice one interesting thing there, right? So she
Yeah.
flinched, but she
Yeah,
kept sniffing,
she
right?
kept sniffing.
So what does that tell you?
Maybe not high enough.
She didn't care enough about it. So don't worry so much about a visual response. For some dogs, they could be very visual because like we talked about, the e-collar functions as a muscle stimulator, so you're gonna see the contraction of the muscle sometimes. But just because you're seeing that doesn't necessarily mean that she cares about it. So
Okay.
if you were at about a 30 there, I usually go up in increments of about 10, so go to maybe a 40.
Okay.
And then we'll keep on cruising.
Okay. Lily? No.
All right, so that time you hit the button, she stopped, right?
Okay,
So that told me that that was a better level.
Yes.
Okay, so here's the next adjustment we're gonna make. So I'm taking things in bite-sized pieces for you right now,
Yeah.
right? So the first adjustment you needed to make is you were saying no way too many times without a correction, right?
Yes.
So adjustment number 1 is anytime we say no, correction always has to follow, right? They always go together, they'll never be split up because again, we're trying to inhibit and stop something, not teach her you could do this until you hear no, right? Second thing though is, even though she was then stopping when you gave your no markers with your correction,
Yeah.
we weren't being very clear about what the expectation of her was, right? Which is why she was still pulling you around and walking way ahead and zigzagging, because really the only thing you were correcting for over the course of that walk is if she stopped to try to sniff
true.
something, right?
That's true.
So now we want to tighten that bubble up. So we don't want her pulling, right?
Right.
So we're going to start walking here, and your next criteria you're going to hold her to is obviously if she stops to sniff something, but also if she pulls into that leash at all. You're going to tell her no and give a correction.
Okay.
So let's keep cruising, and we'll make that adjustment next.
Lily? No.
Perfect. So now we're starting to get a little attention out of her here. So you just have to keep staying consistent right now, right? And you'll notice in a couple more minutes, a couple more corrections you might need to give, and she'll be back to walking like she was before.
Okay.
So this is the biggest thing. So there's 2 parts to solving any of these problems, right? So we have our clarity part, which is we have to make sure we're being clear about what the expectation is, right? Meaning no is always a correction, meaning we're holding her to a crystal clear criteria that we're always going to correct if she does. The second side of things is motivation, right? Clarity without her caring about the correction on the e-collar is meaningless, and vice versa, right? We could be as motivating as we want with the e-collar, but if we're not being clear, it's meaningless.
Right.
So we're adjusting both sides of this. Don't hesitate so much on the correction. I can tell you're like, should I do it? Shouldn't I do it? And some of those, right when you feel that tension, just give it. Because if you're consistent with it right now, you're gonna see this get better much faster, right? Where if you let like little ones slide, like, oh, she didn't pull that hard there, or maybe she listened when I just said Lily instead of saying no, you're gonna find that eliminates the clarity side of things. The expectation is gray again, right? So she could never learn to avoid it. And that's why she was so good when we walked her the other day, is because the clarity and the motivation were consistent for 4 weeks. Yeah, we're gonna go this way.
All right.
And that's why it started to get a little sloppy again, right? But this is looking better again. Here. Yep. There we go. That looks a lot better now. And try to eliminate, you're saying her name a lot as like a warning, you know? So you've replaced your no without a correction with saying her name, is what you've kind of done, right? So if you're gonna tell her anything at this point, just make sure it's no with a correction. Because she's in command right now, right? So if she's not doing the command, it's because she's not listening to you.
Okay.
And then we're gonna make a right here also. You see how she's walking now? That looks great. That's because you tightened up your criteria of her. So this is all you need to do at home. And that's why I said, like, I like to kind of be hands-off in the first follow-up, because I need to watch where your timing issues are, right, to adjust those things. I say dog training, it's not like this thing you put on the dog and then they're a trained dog. It's a communication system, right? So both parties need to know the communication system. Like, she knows it, which is why once we started communicating clearly with her, her expectation, got better, obviously. But we have to understand how to communicate that. This is great, though. This looks good.
Yeah, this is a lot better.
Yeah. Yeah, so you'll see that you can fix this in one session at home with her. You just got to think exactly all the things I was coaching you through just now. You just got to make those adjustments at home.
Which a lot of people do this by them knowing that
Sure.
they could get corrected.
Yeah,
But the word no would give her a warning, but evidently
Well,
it's not enough.
Well, the thing is, it would, right? So if you look at our no marker, right?
Yeah.
We're classically conditioning it with a correction, so the word means something negative, essentially, right? No different than good would mean something positive, right? Where people fall into the trap of is because it means something negative, the dog, generally speaking, like if you were to tell her no right now for getting ahead of you, she would probably stop for a minute. But the reason why she's stopping is because she thinks a consequence is going to happen, right? And when it doesn't happen, she says, oh, mom's just bluffing again.
It's okay.
Right?
Yeah.
It's like if every time, like as a kid, like you're a parent obviously, right? It's like if every time your son did something wrong, you said, if you do that anymore, you're gonna get grounded. And then he stops for 20 minutes. And then when he goes to do it again in 20 minutes, you say, if you do that anymore, you're gonna get grounded. But the grounding never happens.
Right.
You get what I'm saying?
Yes, I do.
It just becomes a warning. He calls your bluff on it, right? One of the best and funniest ways I ever heard it described was, if you went and robbed a bank and then went outside and the police were there, like you're still gonna go to jail if you go and put the money back.
Right.
You get what I'm saying?
Right.
Relax your arm. There you go. Because she should stay with you, even if there's not tension on that leash. You can just go around with them. We'll let them go. Yeah.
Stay in my bubble.
Exactly, right? Not because you're holding her back, but because she knows where she needs to stay, which is why she's doing great with it right now. And if she didn't, if she pulled ahead, we would correct her for that, right?
Right.
So that's the other side of things. Allow her to make the mistake, Don't hold her back from making it. Allow her to make it so we can correct for it and she can learn from it. We're going to jump right into those downs here next. So let's do this. Why don't you turn down maybe like 10 from whatever you're at. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna start with just getting her into the down a bunch of times, like we started with at your house that one time. Okay. So pick a spot, give that down command, give her a minute to do it. If she doesn't do it, what are you gonna do?
I'm gonna zap her.
You're going to tell her no with a correction, and then you could tell her down again, right?
Okay.
So give it a whirl.
But she knows where she's at.
Well, let's talk about this for a minute, right? Because this will happen sometimes where it's like she hasn't done this for the last 4 days, but now she does it perfectly, right? Now, what did we just do on the walk? We set the tone, right? We got her into a compliant state of mind. She started realizing mom's giving corrections for stuff again, right? She's being a little harder on me over things. So sometimes the problem isn't that she didn't know the down or anything like that. The problem is she didn't believe that you were going to hold her accountable for not doing the down, right? So now that we solved that problem on the walk already, she's not trying it with the down.
Okay.
Perfect.
She doesn't understand like.
That's all right.
Okay.
I'll tell you, you're doing a lot better than you did last time, though, with the willingness to correct her. Because last time I could definitely tell you were a little hesitant on it and stuff, and now you're starting to see when you don't do it, how she really pushes you back a little bit, right?
Well, I noticed that also at home with bed.
Sure.
I thought it's enough for her to have the collar on, right? And she gave me her same, and then I'm like, oh my gosh, she didn't go down with the remote. I said, bed, right in the bed.
Yep.
And it was only because she knew I had this in my hand.
Yeah.
That's
So,
part of it.
which listen, I'm glad she did it in that moment, but I don't want her to be cute on that. I don't want her to have to see that in order to listen, which is why we use our no marker, right? We're not bluffing with the remote of like, hey, you got to listen, I have this thing. It's just if you make the mistake, there's always going to be a correction, whether you see that or not, you know? All right, let's do a few more.
Okay. Down.
Nice. Let's try one more.
Okay. Down.
Very good.
Good girl. Good girl.
Cool. All right, so next we're going to start adding some duration into this. So what you're going to do is you're going to put her into that down, set your leash down, and walk away.
Okay. Down.
Perfect.
And then drop the leash.
Yeah, go ahead and set the leash down and then walk away. And then we're just going to let her chill there for a minute. I want to see her really relax into that position. Look at that. There we go. So same deal with you were saying, when she got into the down, she was still having a hard time with holding it, right?
She was just getting up and following me.
Yep.
And I thought, well, at least she's coming to me. She's not running away.
Sure. Yeah. So a lot of times before I go to work the duration, I want to make sure getting into the position she's perfect with, right? Because if she's already unclear on getting into the command and how we're enforcing that, when we go to ask her to stay there, that's going to make it even harder for her, right? So you kind of got to work through those steps and make sure, like what we just did, getting into the down is perfect. That's why this repetition is so good right now. So let's give her one more minute there, and then what you're going to do is go back, get your leash, and then release her. These are all very normal initial things that when people come back the first week that they have. So none of this is abnormal or like you're like messing anything up or anything like that. It's normal stuff, Especially given, you obviously had a lot going on this last week. So it's not like you could put as much attention into her as, normal. So.
No.
Same deal, take her back one more time. Okay, so one thing I want you to do, so your adjustments are fine, how you're correcting her and taking her back, obviously, but to help her out a little bit here, don't look at her when you're walking away, and then keep on moving. So instead of the last couple of reps, what you did is you moved over here, and this is what you did. Right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of, she should stay still, obviously, but that's kind of inviting her of like, wait, does she want me to get up and come to me? Right? So instead of that, put her there, just start walking around. Don't even pay any mind to her. Don't give her any signal that you might want her to come over to you.
Okay.
And just keep on walking around. And that was good because right there she looked at you, right? And she was like thinking, do you want me to come over? And because you didn't acknowledge that at all, she's staying right now.
Because I kind of did just look.
Sure.
She did well while I was
Yep.
Right, as soon as I stood and looked at her.
We just got to break the pattern a little bit, you know? Again, it's not that you can't look at her. Like, hypothetically, you should be able to look at her and she should stay there, obviously. But to help her be successful through this, initially, until she's better with the duration, just try to avoid it a little bit, you know? And you can glance over, like when you're walking, if you want to like quickly like check and make sure she's still there, that's fine. But just don't have it like this hesitation like that, you know?
Yeah. Okay, got it.
Looks good. Why don't you go back to her here and then pick up your leash.
Okay. Okay.
And then you could just start walking. Yeah. Okay. I thought that was very productive.
Yes.
Couple big takeaways, right? Takeaway number one, no marker always is going to have a correction, right? And again, just remember the why behind it is that we don't want to have to say no. I want her to just make the right choices so we don't have to correct it all, right? Not constantly micromanage her with like, no, 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 right? Two, we've got to hold her to a clear expectation with this stuff, right? Meaning on the walk, you're correcting for consistent things. The stopping and sniffing, the pulling ahead of you, things like that, right? Thing number three, adjust your level more frequently. Make sure she cares enough about it, right? That was another big variable today, right? And then number four, with your downs, make sure you get her getting into the down perfect before moving to the duration. And then once you move to the duration, try to not like stare at her and stuff so much to help her out a little bit with it,
Right.
right? But those adjustments look great. I mean, she really did. She really did great once you adjusted those.
Yeah, a lot better.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I thought that was very good.
Okay.
All right, guys, I want to talk about that lesson we just did with Lily, the lab, because it kind of goes hand in hand with a lot of questions I get asked and talk about on my podcast a lot. Quick plug, if you guys aren't following the David the Dog Trainer podcast, we just did episode 121 today, 121 weeks in a row. You guys will probably like it if you're not listening to it, so start listening to it. Anyways, common thing we talk about a lot, which is how do we get clients to be more okay with the idea of using training tools, correcting their dog for things, stuff like that. So Lily has been home from her board and train for about 1 week now, right? And Lily is a pretty challenging dog, I would say, all things considered. She genuinely has, I think, one of the most active noses. It's like a freaking like hound dog or something like that. Like that thing is glued to the ground at all times. She had such a hard time being able to focus in out and about around distractions. Was a very sweet dog and a very friendly dog, but I would say a little bit of a defiant dog at times, for sure. And her owner is a little, you know, I don't like using the word soft, but like can be a little soft with her, right? When we went and did the send home lesson, somewhere near the beginning of the send home lesson, I corrected Lily for jumping all over her, and Lily let out like a little bit of a yip, and the owner really struggled with that a little bit. You know, the idea that, you know, she was obviously using the e-collar and that we were correcting her and that Lily didn't like the corrections and stuff like that, which I would say is a normal thing, but she definitely had even a little bit more of a hard time with it than other people do. And, you know, obviously we talked about it for a little bit. I took the collar off. I had her feel what Lily was feeling so she realized it wasn't that bad. And, you know, we kind of started getting into this concept of, all right, well, you know, Lily's a difficult dog, but we kind of eased her through this send home lesson so that her owner could focus on timing with things. Her owner could focus on understanding how when we gave those corrections, how much better her behavior was, stuff like that. But still throughout the send home lesson, I don't think she fully grasped or understood how important some of those corrections were, right? So when she came in for this follow-up session, you guys obviously saw that the beginning of the lesson, kind of a mess, right? She said obviously Lily's behavior was better, but a common thing we hear all the time, which is right when she got home from the board and train program, it was really good for a couple of days, then she started noticing it slip, where it wasn't as bad as it was before, it was definitely dramatically better, but it definitely was nowhere near as good as when I was there, right? So what I did is I handled things how I like handling things in my first follow-up lesson, which is I'm gonna be totally hands-off, and today we're gonna focus on me instructing you. So first send-home lesson is about showing the owner just an overlay of all of the training. So we're kind of demoing stuff, showing them what the dog is capable of, teaching them basic skills and stuff like that, getting them familiar with the training program. First follow-up lesson is all about the owner though, right? So I had her totally handle the dog. You'll see I coached her through things one at a time, giving the corrections, holding her to a more strict criteria, increasing the level where she needed to, and you could tell as we got through that session, as we hit that like halfway point, I could see it click in the owner's head where she was like, I get this now, right? Like I understand that holding my dog to a higher standard, giving more firm of accountability and consequences has her more focused on me, less stress between the two of us. She's listening to me better. We're enjoying each other better. And, that on top of helping to like equate it to some like, obviously she's a parent, right? Equating it to some things with kids that will commonly not dive into a whole lot with some owners, and teaching them like how like we hold kids accountable for things and common misconceptions about like constantly warning them or nagging them or this or that really helped seal the deal of her understanding things. And like I said, as she saw Lily's behavior completely improve, obviously that helped to get her to understand how important some of this stuff actually is. So that's kind of how we coach a lot of owners through this. And sometimes you just got to figure out like what is the way I need to explain this to them in order for them to truly understand it. And sometimes it's equating it to things that they can relate to more, like parenting maybe. In other cases, it comes down to just them seeing that in combination with, as they don't provide those consequences, how the dog's behavior will slip inevitably, because as I say all the time, behavior is contingent on consistent reinforcement. So super awesome lesson, super proud of that owner, very excited to see how she does in her next follow-up session when she comes back in, because we ended in a killer spot today. That was really cool. So. The good thing is he's very motivated by the bonker, right? So basically, I was giving bonker corrections in place of e-collar corrections, essentially, right? And just train him like normal, right? But work some drills where you do like pass bys and things like that, where you get a couple opportunities to make sure he's in a good state of mind. And keep putting the muzzle on. You could put the muzzle on him. If he goes to fight it at all, you could bonk him for fighting it, and just work him like normal, but you need to be really firm on this dude. Because he knows we mean business right now, like he's in a pretty good state of mind right now. And we don't want him like living in fear by any means, but like he needs to know that he's got to like cool that shit, because like that's what's going to get him put down,
She stares. Just do it. You got to just commit. So this is my friend Brandy. She's been here for a little about a week or so now, and she came here the first day she arrived, very nervous, very shut down, which is understandable for a lot of dogs when they come to a new environment, especially the training facility, around new people. But Brandy was a little different because of her anxiety. It's really been hard to break her out of that shell and get her comfortable and see her open up. So this first week we've been going very slow into our kind of groundwork level stuff, allowing her to get to know me a little bit better, get to know the facility a little bit better, getting her into the socials and seeing new dogs, hanging around them, seeing what it's like to be a dog. So this first week we've really only been working on the ground level stuff, getting her to work on a bed stay, getting her to lay down in the training room, getting her to walk properly on our walks during the day. And everything's been going really good overall. But you can see she's still very much kind of nervous. So our game plan with a dog like this is obviously not to make them more stressed, not to force them into learning things that they just aren't quite ready to do, because it's only going to shut them down even more. So with Brandy, she's been a good example of being able to, for me and her, to really build a relationship. And by doing so, you know, we've been able to kind of work things out a little bit faster, I think. And, you know, looking for these next few weeks, you know, obviously still taking things into consideration with her being a little bit stressed out. But when we hit a certain point of into the board and train, it's about progressing her through, right? A lot of times when we see a nervous dog like this, we do want to take things, you know, or we don't want to push things too far. But with her, if you make a really good foundation, or just with dogs in general with high anxiety, a really good foundation, you're able to kind of push them a little bit more in certain areas. So this last week, we've been working all of our commands, but we've really been pushing her bed stay. So if she gets nervous with other dogs around or people walking into the room, she knows that that is kind of her safe space, that she can work through those emotions and feel those emotions, but still feel comfortable within that command. So this first week, we've been really pushing that, and things have been going really, really good. And next week, we start to add on more commands, more duration, more distractions, and just evolve through and letting her, the goal is to hopefully let her know that the world and everything in it is not as scary as she thinks it is, and listening to the commands and the instructions that we give her are super beneficial in the end, where we have her best interest in mind, and we will let her know and never put her into a dangerous situation by letting her know exactly what we want her to do. So that is our goal, right? She's been doing really good. Me and her, I think, have been bonding. I think I like her a little bit more, but we've been doing good, right? So stay tuned, and see your progress near the end. Bed? Cool. All right, so yeah, let's talk a little bit. So like I was saying, the first command that we've been focusing on really is our bed command. So getting her just moving is really the most important part when you get a dog as super nervous as she is. Bed. They like to plant a lot. They like to shut down. They like to lay down. And you get to that point where you're on your walk and you have to kind of drag them along sometimes. And obviously you don't want to do that. So getting her moving is really the most important goal here. But obviously the end goal of getting her on the bed and having her stay there is also really important. So, okay. Getting her just to respond to these simple commands as well. The release and the command itself, the bed, is what I'm looking for. Bed. And even with her kind of still being nervous and hanging in the corner of the bed, that's totally fine. I'm not really working on the specifics. I'm also not really working on too much duration right now, just trying to keep things successful. Okay, working with a nervous dog, you want to keep that success rate as high as possible. Bed. Good. And getting her to relax is really important through this process. Okay. But as she learns the commands, that confidence, that's where that confidence boost comes in. Because she has a clear path of what is supposed to be done. A lot of times with the anxiety, they're kind of led to make decisions on their own, and that's where they can get a little frazzled. So having that clear instruction, again, having this spot for her to go and be safe and know that when I say so, is really good for her in the end, because she's going to know, okay, this is what I need to do to feel safe, right? And have that clear understanding of what she needs to do. Okay? That way she's not getting frazzled and thinking she has to go and hide in a corner and making those decisions on her own. I will let her know exactly what I want her to do to keep her safe. Bed. Or to make her feel safe, I guess. Good girl. Yes. Walking's another thing that we've been working on, obviously, as well. So this working in here has been a good goal, because when we're working with the beds, you can see she kind of likes to divert to that, right? I want her to know that, yes, that is a safe space for you to do, but also walking in with me is very important as well. The come command is really important because, again, it's making the point that I'm not the thing to be scared of, right? I want you to find that comfort and safety with being near me and in my bubble. Good girl. So when she is getting shut down like that, and I am kind of pulling her into my circle, I want her to know that this is the safe space and to not be scared of it. Okay, come. Good. Okay, come. Nice job. Okay. When teaching commands, being more general at first is always helpful for the dogs, because if you try to be too specific with the rules and too tight with that criteria right off the bat, it can lead to a lot more confusion with them sometimes. So having my space not be ideal where she's coming into at first is totally fine. Getting her to understand that coming to me is the good thing is the most important thing right now, right? Once we do get that success and that success starts to be consistent, then we can start fixing up and fine-tuning our commands with the criteria. One thing about our facility is we are a balanced training facility, meaning that we do use positive reinforcement as well as the e-collar training. But as you can see, Brandy does not have her e-collar on even after a week of being here, which is fairly normal with some of the dogs that we get here. Going back to, like I was saying, with going slow and not forcing her into things too much, usually with the e-collars, that is when you're getting to a point, at least in the training process, of teaching the duration, working through distractions, or dealing with more reactive behaviors, more behavioral issues. With Brandy, we're really trying to get things successful, boost that confidence, and teach with laying in more to the positive reinforcement. So we aren't, even though she doesn't have one on yet, we just quite aren't ready to implement the e-collar quite yet, because we're still pretty broad with our criteria. Once we start kind of bringing stuff in, seeing that confidence coming up, seeing that understanding of the commands come up, then we will start to implement more of the e-collar training into our routine, where we can start proofing and fine-tuning those commands. So even though she doesn't have one on yet, we will get there eventually. We just need to teach her a little bit more before she gets there. Right?